Who wants to be a millionaire? Okay. True or false? The world consumed as many goods and services in the period 1950 to 1995, 45 years, as it did in all the previous generations combined. True or false? 1.3 billion people in the world live on less than $1 a day. True or false? Over 90% of girls aged 13 in one survey listed shopping as their favorite activity, followed by TV watching. True or false? Christians spend more money on wrapping paper than they give in charitable giving. True or false? $50 billion is spent annually on cigarettes in Europe. More than 1 in 3 American families report their financial situation was, quote, out of control at some point in their life. True or false? 1 out of 3. A person making $85,000 a year is in the richest 1% of the world's population. $85,000 a year. The average American is exposed to over 850 advertising messages per day. True or false? The amount of additional spending, in other words, in addition to what's already being spent globally, the amount of additional spending needed globally to provide clean drinking water and sanitation to every person on the planet is $9 billion. True or false? Americans hold nearly $950 billion in credit card debt. The Bible contains 2,350 verses on money, which is double the amount of verses on faith or prayer. And today, the average ratio of CEO compensation to the lowest paid employee in their company, on average, is 475 to 1. In other words, the CEO makes 475 times more than the lowest paid employee in the average American corporation. True or false? All right, let's see how well you did. Who said that every single one of them was false? Who said that every single one of them was true? Oh, you guys are just so smart, aren't you? And how many people had a mixture? Every single one of them was true. Now, for those of you that thought certain ones were false, do you remember which ones you weren't convinced were true? Any? Yeah?
Yeah.
It's about the wrapping paper. Yeah, that's a killer, isn't it? That's a real killer. Wrapping paper and pet food. We spend more percentage-wise than on charitable giving. In the blue. Yes, that in the last 45 years we've consumed as many goods and services as in all of the previous generations. Yeah.
It would only cost $9 billion to provide everybody.
Only costs, according to the I have the sources for all of those in some background notes in my computer, and I think the source for that one is one of these UN, development agency type things. Yeah, that was quite surprising to me too, especially when you put that $9 billion that it would require to give everybody clean water and sanitation, and then you compare that to the $50 billion spent annually on cigarettes. That really, or the $950 in the credit card debt. Yeah. Good. Well, I wanted to kind of open with, and by the way, congratulations on those who realized that all of those were true. That was very smart. I wanted to start with that because just at the beginning of our time this morning, and by the way, I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be in Richmond and see some old friends, and it's always an incredible pleasure and delight to get to hang out with my buddy Ken Myers. He and I actually used to edit a magazine together years ago, And I was telling my friend Emily on the way over here, I said, the thing about when Ken does a lecture is that, of course he comes across, brilliant and all the things that he totally is. But what you don't know about Ken is he's hilariously funny. And you don't necessarily pick up on that. But every time I'm with Ken, I pretty much spend most of my time just kind of giggling because he's just so funny. So I wanted to begin with those little factoids because it's just helpful to realize how big kind of the topic is we're going to talk about today, because the topic we're talking about today is sort of money-related issues, stewardship, and I just wanted us to realize how pervasive this is in our life. The factoids were about everything from kind of spending and consuming and giving and investing. They're about sort of materialism, the amount of advertising you get exposed to, all of these different things. We're talking about sort of an arena of life that affects us on a daily basis. I mean, as we look over the course of our lives, just think about the amount of time we spend either making money or spending money, okay? So I just want us to begin with realizing how deeply pervasive kind of issues about money and money-related topics are. And as a result of the fact that this is just so pervasive in our lives, it seems like this question of biblical financial stewardship ought to be a very central component of Christian discipleship. Economic choices are really central to the life of Christian discipleship. All right, now maybe that statement isn't landing on us right now, so let me read it again. Economic choices are central to the life of Christian discipleship. But the truth is, do we really function as though that were true? Do the churches really function? Is teaching on financial stewardship something that's a really, 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 really major theme you hear about constantly from the pulpit? Probably not. And actually, if the preacher talks a little bit too much about money, we start to get a little irritated, little annoyed. So we have this gigantic arena of our lives, sort of this huge space called personal financial stewardship. And yet, if we're really honest, the truth is that we're radically individualistic about how we kind of manage that sphere of our life. And that's really what I want to talk about today. This radical individualism, I think, expresses itself in two ways. And I'm going to talk about these two big points today, and we're going to spend a lot more time on point number one and a shorter time on point number two. The first is that we're individualistic in the sense that we're very, very private about this arena of our life, this arena called earning, spending, giving, investing. Most of us, many of us, don't really talk that much to family or friends or fellow Christians about money matters. As I said, we get a little annoyed if the preacher spends too much time talking about money. We consider it sort of rude or being in bad taste or inappropriate for people to pry into our lives. And so as a result, in this gigantic sphere of our life that affects us every day for hours a day, this huge pervasive part of our daily life, we are largely without accountability in many, many ways. Secondly, we're individualistic in the sense that we don't always pay that much attention to how our economic decisions affect other people. And by other people, I mean people kind of beyond our immediate sphere. Obviously, we think about how our economic choices tend to affect our own families. But sort of beyond that sphere, we don't really spend a lot of time thinking about that. So those are kind of the two big things I want to talk about today, because these two realities about many of us in the church, that we're radically sort of private and that we're individualistic in our economic choices and that we're really just kind of thinking about their effect on us and on our immediate circle, I think those two things actually are very opposed to what I would call the heart of kingdom-oriented stewardship. This notion of what does it mean for us to be money managers and stewards that are trying to live for the kingdom of God and live in the kingdom of God.